1995, my guest, Mark, experienced something he cannot explain. You might not believe his story, but in the Mystery Parlor, we break down the tale, not the teller. Okay, now Mark is not your real name, and we will respect that. But if you sense any rejection from me, just know I am assuming you're telling the truth as you know it. But I think you and I both want to consider all possibilities. Just relax and tell your story.
Okay, well, I didn't tell this story for a long time after it happened. Because it freaked me out and because I did not want people, thinking I was nuts. And even when I tell it now, it's in the context of Halloween or a campfire, But it did happen, and I am more than willing to consider any rational explanations for it. Shoot, I have been searching for a rational explanation for more than 30 years now. Dude, seriously, I do not believe these kinds of stories when I hear them, so I get it. And I understand if you don't believe me.
You do not seem nuts to me, but you do seem nervous. Try to relax, and please, go on.
My wife's mother had passed about 3 years prior, and her dad was going to remarry. He wanted the wedding to be held in Helena, Arkansas. That's where he grew up, and most of his family still lived in that area. He had a house up there on a piece of property owned by his family where we would be staying. We lived in Miami at the time, and it was about a 2-day drive. I enjoyed it, really. I am a history buff, and there's a lot to see if you know what to look for. Anyway, we arrived early in the morning, like 2 a.m. Helena is a river town, one of many that you see up and down the Mississippi River. We had to cross the Helena Bridge to get into town. It's one of those old steel bridges that uses steel girders to build a frame to support the bridge. That steel frame just goes up and up. And it was so dark. The only light we could see for miles was the flashing light at the top of that bridge.
Yep, I know those bridges. Used to scare the heck out of me when I was little. They sound like they are howling when you drive across. Please continue.
The wedding was held the next day at the house where we were staying. It was nice, it was a wedding. Point is, the only time we actually left the house was the morning after the wedding. My wife and I woke up early and we were hungry. We came out of the bedroom and found people sleeping everywhere, on the floor, on the furniture. Someone was even sleeping under the dining room table. So we left quietly to find a place to eat. Not wanting to get lost, I drove the same roads we took coming in. When I got to the main road, I turned east toward the bridge. The bridge was huge and it had that light, that blinking light. I was using it as a landmark. Okay, so we're driving along toward the bridge and we see this diner. It's a small, old-fashioned place. It was very charming, porcelain and silver and linen. Big wooden sign above the door with those old-style Christmas bulb lights. Do you know the kind? They were laid over the letters spelling Dottie's or Dorothy's or Dots or something. It was quaint. Next to the door was a painting on the window, a smiling redhead. Probably Dot or Dottie or whoever. You see, we talked about these things. That's why I remember them and why I am convinced they were real.
That is a good point, Mark. You don't just remember the diner, you remember talking about the diner.
Yes, exactly. And when we went inside, my wife whispered, "Is this place retro or just ancient?" It was a valid question that were really selling the throwback motif. The furniture, the waitress's outfit, everything looked like a period piece. And then the food. The waitress never brought a menu, just asked if we wanted breakfast. It was a lot of food, eggs, grits, and bacon, a lot of bacon. But it was swimming in grease. There was literally a pool of grease on the plate. I could not eat it, but it didn't matter because the toast was amazing. The bread was huge, at least 2 inches thick. With the homemade jam and butter, we were more than satisfied. And then when we got ready to leave, I laid a 20 on the counter and told her to keep the change. You would have thought I left a $100 tip the way she reacted, thanking us and yelling back at the kitchen about it. I am not unfamiliar with Southern hospitality, but this was odd. When we got back to the house, it was a whole different scene. Everyone was awake and some people in the process of loading up their cars to leave, while others were setting up for a big barbecue being held for those of us staying the extra night. At some point, I mentioned having gone to breakfast. Someone asked where we went. I told them, and they said, well, you must be mistaken. The only thing between here and the bridge is Old Helena. Okay, so this is when I learned more about Helena, Arkansas than I thought I would ever know. As it turns out, the Mississippi River has been dammed up and rerouted so much that it has receded over the years. Receded a lot. So much so that towns like Helena that were built along the banks of the river were no longer on the bank, but as in the case of Helena, too far away from the river. Helena died. It is a ghost town, frozen in time. These people did not live in Helena. They lived in West Helena, a modern small town. Old Helena was a tourist attraction to them, a museum piece. Keep in mind, I was not seeing this as some big mystery yet. Maybe I'd taken a wrong turn, or maybe I hadn't drive as far as I thought, or maybe these guys were just pulling my leg.
That is, I believe, what anyone would assume at that point.
But the next day, on the drive home, there was no doubt. I did not make a wrong turn. There were only 2 turns. One out of the neighborhood and one onto Route 49. Left goes west to West Helena, and one goes east to Old Helena toward the bridge. The bridge is huge. You can see that blinking light from miles away. I drove toward it because I did not want to get lost. I mean, that was the point. I didn't want to make a wrong turn, so I went toward that big freaking bridge. There are no turns going toward the bridge until you reach Old Helena. Not one turn. And then we saw it, the diner where we'd eaten just the day before. Only now it looked like everything else in that ghost town. Old and abandoned. The windows were missing, no painting, no redhead, and it was dark inside. But I could tell it was empty. Empty of furniture and empty of people. And the sign, that silly cheap sign. It was weathered and aged, but it was the same sign. Okay, so maybe it was a similar place. Maybe they have a chain of freaking Dots diners in Arkansas. But the bridge, man. That big bridge with the light, where could I have been that had the same view of this bridge? I asked my wife if she was seeing this, and she said, just go, I just want to go home. Brock, that was the closest we ever came talking about it. I have never seen her so scared, before or since.
And she would not discuss it after that?
No way. To her, it just did not happen.
And what about now?
Well, we got divorced. I have not spoken with her in a long time.
What if you asked her about it just as a source for this podcast?
I couldn't say. She might be mad that I'm telling the story.
Well, so you know, and so our audience knows, we researched what we could and found the following. 1. We were able to contact your ex-wife. She was willing to confirm the story, but that is all. She will not discuss it. 2nd, there is a Helena Bridge, there's a West Helena, and although most of it has since been brought down for new development, there is an abandoned town that matches your description on the west side of the bridge. 3, the maps we have seen are modern, not from 1995, but there is nothing we can find to contradict your story. If you did drive toward that bridge, that morning you ate breakfast, there is really no way to make a wrong turn. Even today, the only paved road is Route 49. There are a couple of dirt roads, but if you had taken one of them, you would have found yourself on a farm, not at a diner. The only detail you have appeared to misremember, and it changes nothing about the veracity of your story, is that the road you describe, Route 49, does head east to the bridge, but it actually goes north to West Helena. A minor detail that, if anything, further suggests you never went to West Helena. 4. There are places to eat in the vicinity of the location you described, but they are all further away from the bridge. If, as you say, you drove toward the bridge so deliberately because you wanted to avoid getting lost, then there is no accounting for the diner as you describe it. That abandoned area of Helena currently has no access to utilities, and I think we can assume it did not in 1995. We even considered the possibility that you actually drove across the bridge, but in that case, you would have seen a Mississippi visitor center that could not be mistaken for a small diner, and a bunch of farmland. In addition, The visitor center was built after 1995 and subsequently replaced by a casino. Friend, we found nothing to disprove the basic facts of your story. For those people who are going to assume you just took a wrong turn and that is the end of it, well, thanks for watching. But it seems to me that if I were in Mark's shoes, if I was concerned with getting lost 1,000 miles from home and I could identify a landmark like that bridge and the light at the top of it, well, I would be pretty sure if I had lost sight of it. We have a photo of that bridge. It is not just tall, it is clearly the tallest thing for miles around. The way I see it, if you find it unbelievable that Mark ate at a ghost diner, I agree. But I find it equally unbelievable that he got lost in a way that would account for all of the elements in this story. There is a truth here, maybe even a simple truth. But we at the Mystery Parlor will not quell our confusion by dismissing the teller because we cannot explain the tale. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to our viewers. And we will see you next time on the Mystery Parlor.